Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners meeting, please come to order. Do we have a motion for adoption of the agenda?
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, in discussion? Not all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. There being none. At this time, we'll have our public comment session. If there's anything you'd like to speak to the board about tonight that's not later on the agenda, please do so at this time. We'd ask that you hold your comments to 5 minutes if you would, please. Megan, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for giving me a few minutes tonight. My name is Megan Vaughn. I live at 324 West Soundside Road, but I'm here tonight on behalf of the vestry of St. Andrews by the Sea Episcopal Church, and we have no gripe, no complaint, no request, other than a request maybe that you participate in some festivities we have coming up. The fifth weekend of the 5th, 6th, and 7th of August will be our 100th anniversary celebration of our chapel.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's really cool.
It is.
Yeah, we're excited. And there's been a lot going on, and there's a whole weekend of events planned. There's a kickoff art show, which we have artists from all over the Albemarle region that have contributed, and anybody who still wants to contribute, please do. Paint, sculpt, photograph. But we have a lot of submissions. The Outer Banks History Center has been really involved in the whole planning of the celebration, and they'll be there on Saturday afternoon. There's going to be storytelling, and there's a giant pictorial history that's been together of the parish and the building, of course, and the history. And there's several descendants of the original families that built the chapel will be there, and the Outer Banks History Center is going to record all their talks, et cetera, for the archives. So they've been really involved in helping us put it together. And then Saturday, we have Saturday night and Sunday are spiritual gatherings, and Sunday lunch is a big lunch, barbecued lunch catered by Lone Cedar. And everything is open to the public. We'd love to have everybody come to any or all of it. And we're really excited about the whole activity, and proud that the chapel's still standing 100 years. We're working towards keeping it standing for 100 more. So I've got a couple of posters here, props, if anyone's interested in has any place they can put these up. It's really sort of mostly about the art show, which is Friday night. And I've got a couple of invitations. But more people feel free to get your very own. And, I hope, and for everybody else, please do attend any or all of the festivities that you can. Thanks.
Cool.
Thank you, Megan.
Great. Thank you.
Sounds real exciting.
Megan, please don't take the posters as you leave. Please leave
I
them.
won't.
Leave those.
Never know. Thank you.
I will be.
Yeah.
And I've got more if anybody really wants it.
Okay, we'll make sure they get up.
Okay.
Anybody else to speak to the board tonight? Not, we declare public comments closed. Next item is new business, consideration of a budget adjustment number 12 for the 15-16 budget ordinance. Is Amy over there tonight? Oh, yeah, there she is. Would you like to tell us about that, Amy?
Okay, so this is for budget adjustment number 12. This would be for fiscal year 2016, which we're reporting to you. And the one that's for $173,500, basically those were funds we've identified to cover some of the expenditures from Dowdy Park. We didn't get the bids back until 6:30, so I wanted to make sure that, first of all, none of the departments would go over budget, because that would be against state statute. So we've identified some funds from health insurance savings, vehicle maintenance savings, insurance savings. And I wanted to point out, I know as we had discussed earlier, that in June, we did a resolution to commit $80,000 of our fund balance from that health insurance savings that we found this year. So that is still intact. That can't be undone without a board action as well. So Basically, these are funds we've identified to help cover some of the Dowdy Park costs, which I think we'll be discussing also tonight, so.
Okay, any questions for Amy? Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the budget adjustment number 12.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? That would be adoption of the budget ordinance adjustment, right? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. And so carried. Next item is the Dowdy Park project. And this one, we need to consider the authorization for the town manager to execute 3 contracts, the base bid, the landscape irrigation, and the playground purchase and installation, and David's going to cover that for us.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Before I get into some of the numbers related to the bids that we've received, I just wanted to go ahead and give a little bit of a project background. Okay, so from the very beginning, this project, really the main driver was the Trillium Health Resources grant, the Play Together construction grant in the amount of $750,000 that we received earlier this year. And the contract terms associated with that grant, basically, the requirements included inclusiveness, throughout the playground components and the various park elements, as well as a very short timeline for construction. It was actually 7 months from the issuance of approval for inclusiveness from Trillium. So this project essentially was a fast-tracked project from the very beginning. Additionally, we received funds from Dare County Tourism Board for the short-term restricted grant in the amount of $250,000. And the contract terms for that included construction of the event plaza, pavilion, event green, walking trails, fitness stations, parking, and inclusive play areas. So those were some of the parameters associated with the grants that we had received. Other funding sources, we received a $5,000 grant from the Outer Banks Community Foundation, the amount of $5,000 for the purchase of the Liberty Swing, as well as funding within fiscal year 15-16, which was taken out of the Capital Park Reserve and Path Fund in the amount of $150,000, and then for this fiscal year from that same account in the amount of $120,000. So the project total with the grants as well as the town's contribution was $1.275 million. Some of the project goals and objectives with this project, just wanted to recap those. Basically, to develop a community gathering and recreational space open to all residents, look at inclusive areas for all ages and all needs, have the integration of art into play elements and other site elements, have educational components for hands-on learning, as well as flexible spaces for interactive programming. So in summary, basically we have a fast-track project with very customized components to it. So as far as the project planning, it was a collaborative effort. We had basically 3 consultants that we had on board. We had Pace Collaborative out of Virginia Beach, Virginia, that assisted in the plumbing and electrical design, CLH Design out of Cary, North Carolina, which assisted with the landscape architecture, the development of the playground and some of the major site elements. Cahoon and Caston Architects here in Nags Head, North Carolina, which assisted with the pavilion design. And then we had our own town staff to assist with design and project management basically bringing all these pieces together to form construction documents and really come up with a very inclusive project manual and design document set. So some of those goals within the project planning phase included an adaptive design to accommodate future phases. It was really front-loaded with a lot of infrastructure in this first phase to include stormwater, to include irrigation, to include parking. A lot of these major infrastructure components were included within that first phase that are going to apply to a lot of the future phases. Also, we wanted to account for variability in pricing for custom components within the park design, and to the maximum extent practicable, try to maintain the project concept with that being a major consideration. Also, we wanted to go ahead and provide flexibility in bidding so as not to create future project delays. This was broken out in 3 parts, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. But this fell under formal bidding guidelines, informal bidding guidelines, and also a portion of it was done via a cooperative purchasing agreement. So we just wanted to allow flexibility within those bidding guidelines, knowing that we had a very shortened time frame, and ensure that we didn't account for any project delays as a result of something that we didn't consider during the bidding phase. Additionally, we wanted to look at creative ways to supplement site improvements and site furnishings. Knowing that we had limited funds, look at opportunities for naming rights, for some of the site furnishings. Also look at community outreach, especially within the art community, since we had an art space built into this design, seeing what we could do to reach out to them to help assist with implementation of some of those art site components. So during the planning phase, there was a lot of work that was done on the fly. During the course of planning, we developed probable cost construction estimates to kind of give us a better sense of where we are in the budget. This also included performing value engineering and basically looking at all the individual site elements. This included earthwork, site improvements such as parking, paths, structures, site furnishings, looking at the pavilion component, plumbing, electrical, playground equipment, and landscape and irrigation. We went through each one of those with a consultant almost on an item-by-item basis to see what we could do to get our best value and maintain the integrity of the design. Project scheduling was a large challenge in, again, trying to pull all these different components together. The start date for us for that 7-month period that we had noted earlier started on June 15th, and that was based upon the approval issued by Trillium for inclusiveness for the playground design. So from that, extracted out the 7 months, and the construction completion date of January 15th of 2017 was basically our target completion date. So in going ahead and laying out the construction schedule, we have this broken out into the 3 separate components. So the base bid, which is a bulk of the site improvements, basically that is scheduled to be initiated in early August here in 2016, so within the next couple of weeks. Proceed with construction. Within that is trying to achieve a milestone, and that milestone is for the preparation of the playground equipment and installation. So we set forth a milestone to ensure that the two can go ahead and coordinate their work together and still meet the January 15th timeline. We have a substantial completion date scheduled for the end of this calendar year, and then given an additional 2 weeks to go ahead and complete punch list items and coincide with the Trillium completion date. The second part of this includes the playground contractors. So basically, later on we'll get into the actual contract and amount, but for them to go ahead and proceed with ordering their equipment in order for them to mobilize on site, be ready to start in October of 2016, the very early portion, and then again be completed by the end of December, and we'll have a little bit built in to complete punch list items, again adhering to that January 15th date. And then the third part, which is the least critical part of this project schedule, would be the landscape and irrigation. Since we will not be applying any funds to the Trillium grant for the landscape and irrigation component, that we can go ahead and complete those services post base bid and playground construction work. So we've got it so they can go ahead and commence in early January of 2017 and be complete by mid-March 2017. That way the contractors are not stepping on each other, trying to get all the work done in a short period of time. And also that is ideal for the planting season. So when we framed the bids for this project, especially with the base bid, which is really the most complex bid, that's me, isn't it? I knew it. My apologies. So we basically asked for a lump sum price, but we also asked for unit prices in there as well. So one, we could go ahead and do cost comparisons once we received the bid to see where we fell in line with our opinions of probable construction cost. And also we could use those unit prices as a point of reference should there be a need for a change order during the course of the project that we could go ahead and pull from to ensure that we had competitive pricing for that. So within the base bid, we went ahead and we developed a list of alternates. And this was essentially done in order to give ourselves the flexibility of basically pulling components out as need be based upon the funds available for the project. So those alternates were prioritized, and they are as follows. The pavilion was the first alternate. The event plaza trellis was the second alternate. The wavy walkway was the third. Observation deck fourth. The brick paver accents were fourth. There was a walkway with reduction alternate in there, parking lot lighting, and then pathway bollard lighting. So we gave ourselves the most flexibility, again, in order not to go ahead and delay the project and have to re-advertise if we materially change the scope of work for the project. Okay, so with the divided project scope of work, we had the base bid package, which fell within the formal bidding range, the landscape and irrigation, which fell within the informal bidding range. Basically reached out to local contractors for that portion of the work in order to obtain the best pricing. And then the playground installation for the purchase of that equipment and install, that was done through a cooperative purchasing agreement. The bids initially were due on June 30th, 2016. For the base bid package, we only received 2 bids. By statutory requirements, for the formal bidding range, we were supposed to receive 3, so therefore we were forced to re-advertise. For the landscape and irrigation component, we only received one bid for that, and again, thought it would be in our best interest to re-advertise that in order to go ahead and get some competitive pricing. So we re-advertised and extended that date until July 12th, 2016. We had received 2 bids for the base bid package, one from Hatchell Concrete here in Manio, and we had received another package, and then also for the landscape and irrigation, we had received a single package, and that was from Alpha Advantage. And then the Carolina Parks and Play, that was being done a cooperative purchasing agreement, so that didn't require a formal bidding process. So Hatchell was determined to be the lowest responsible bidder, and then when we added the different parts that we had broken out together, we had determined that we had exceeded the available funds that we had for this project. So based upon that, we were able to move forward and negotiate with each one of the bidders, looked at performing additional value engineering, as well as looking at maybe alternate construction methods and construction types. We identified several minor elements in the site that could be delayed and maybe put off till future phases, and looked at the prioritized scope of work within the Phase 1 project to see what we could try to fit in to the Phase 1 bid. And you will note that there are 2 items that we've asked the contractors to go back and maybe perform additional value engineering on. One of those being the pavilion, because we had determined that the price that we had received was maybe not the best price, that if we did additional value engineering, we could obtain a better price. Also, the poured-in-place surface for the playground, there was a piece of construction missing from that component. The playground vendor had reached out to several contractors within the Raleigh area in order to obtain competitive pricing. He received some pricing. We determined that that pricing was far in excess of what we thought that it should be. So what we had done is we had contacted a couple local contractors who were capable of performing that work and seeing if they could provide some pricing for this scope of work that could be incorporated in, and again, gave them some additional time in order to sharpen their pencils and get us some updated pricing. So with all that said, even after we've divided this out into several parts and gotten through the challenge of the scheduling, basically we had insufficient funds available based upon all this work we have done. So at this time, I'm going to ask Amy Miller to come up here, and she's worked very hard in going ahead and identifying additional funds, and I think one of those she just went ahead and mentioned with that budget amendment number 12 that can assist with going ahead and moving this project forward.
Thank you. So as I had mentioned before and Dave had mentioned, Budget Amendment 12 did transfer $173,500 into the Dowdy Park project. That money has already been encumbered. The second, I guess we're looking for some guidance as well as far as Budget Amendment number 1 that we'll bring to you in August. The first source of funds that I have identified have been approximately $100,000, and that is from fixing an accounting accrual that we are receiving a payment in September that needs to be recorded back into 2016, and per our auditor's guidance, it hadn't been done that way in the past. So what she has asked us to do is to record half of the payment in 2016 and half of the payment in 2017. So that is an extra $100,000 to correct an accounting accrual that had not been budgeted for due to our conservative budgeting requirements. So what I would like to bring to the board in August is Budget Amendment 1, which would increase utilities franchise tax to about $100,000 for revenue, and then the other $100,000, the other piece of that budget amendment would be to increase Dowdy Park by $100,000. So that's one source of fund. Some other suggestions we had come up with would be to, I want to say this correctly, delay improvements or defer some maintenance. Some of that would be to take $25,000, that is from Parks and Pass money from 2017 for the multi-use path repairs. Outer Banks Medical Center repairs for $25,000, another $25,000 for the Public Works building garage, and $20,000 for the Board of Commissioners roof. Those 4 items add up to $95,000, and that would provide approximately a 3.5% contingency, because with the bids that David had been talking about, there was no contingency. So with the $100,000 that I've identified in revenue for utilities franchise tax, and if we choose to defer or delay some of these maintenance and improvements, that would, again, give us a 3.5% contingency. Some other options we had talked about were taking the money from fund balance, just appropriating $100,000 from fund balance. Even Cliff has some contingency money in the budget, and appropriating fund balance and using his contingency money would both take board action. If we delayed or deferred some of these maintenance and improvements, that would simply be a budget transfer. So some other things we had talked about, and I think that we would like to have your guidance on as well, is maybe some lighting in the parking lot that had been not part of the recommendations that David had talked about, that could possibly pose a safety concern for $18,000. So I think we'd like some guidance as far as possibly looking at using contingency money for that, if we do go ahead and put that 3.5% contingency in there, or if you would like to just ask us to find that money and ask them to add it on. So we'd like the guidance on if you would like us to defer, delay some projects, use fund balance, and any other add-ons that you would feel would be beneficial to the project in addition to what David had recommended. Okay. Here's David.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so the recommendation that we're asking for board consideration for tonight is to authorize the town manager to proceed with the execution of 3 separate contracts in the following not to exceed amounts. That would be with Hatchell Concrete Incorporated in the amount of $752,713.16, and that includes the base bid package with the base bid price of $711,443.16 plus alternate number 2, which is the Event Plaza Trellis in the amount of $28,770, and alternate number 3, which is the wavy walkway. I just want to note that the wavy walkway originally was of wood construction, and we have gone ahead and done some value engineering on it and have come up with a different construction type method with a concrete walkway, still trying to maintain that same design, but just via a different method. And that price is $12,500, so those 3 numbers there should add up to that $752,000. The second contract would be with Alpha Advantage Incorporated in the amount of $162,635, and that would encompass the landscape and irrigation package. And finally, the third portion, or the playground part, would be in the amount of $380,784.48. and this would be via the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. So that is the requested motion tonight. In addition to that, as Amy had outlined, we would be looking at a potential budget amendment to increase the project funds at the October 3rd board meeting and thank you, August. And this would be to authorize the town manager to execute contract change orders in the amount of, well, less than $191,000 for the construction of the pavilion. Again, we've asked them to take the additional time in order to go ahead and bring that price down. We don't know exactly what that is, but we are hopeful that it's going to be less than that amount and hopefully significantly less than. In addition to that, a change order with Carolina Parks and Play for the poured-in-place surface. The price that was originally given was $75,000. Again, being hopeful that we can come up with a price that's significantly less than that. And then also by that time, we will have a firm price on the performance of geotechnical services that will take place during the course of construction. So again, just to reiterate what Amy had said, we are looking on some direction of a preferred funding source in order to go ahead and make up this shortfall, as far in addition to board direction for the inclusion of any additional site elements other than what we have identified this evening for inclusion in phase 1. And then third, a project contingency, and the staff recommendation is at least a minimum of 3% for the overall project budget. So with all that being said, I know it's a lot to digest. I will be glad to field any questions that you may have.
Any questions for David?
One, do we have a summary sheet that gives totals that we can put on a slide here?
Yes, sir.
I just made one.
Well, I gave up.
This is very similar to the one that you received yesterday. There have been a couple minor tweaks to it to include some of the more updated pricing. And it is broken down with the available budget, the encumbered funds, and then also the cost of the bids received. And also there's credits on there for sales tax too, and you will see that off here to the right-hand side that we have accounted for that can be applied to the overall project total.
Now, the funds that you had at the top there, the fiscal year 17, that has not been encumbered, right? 16 was encumbered tonight.
So,
120,000.
for, yes. Right. Yes, that is a budget item in the capital reserve for Parks and Path for fiscal year 16-17.
Okay, all right, that is the Parks and Path Fund.
That's correct.
Okay, I was not questioning, was wondering about that.
The sales tax adjustment on landscaping, I gather, is one of these service things that,
Yes,
that's
that
good.
is, we've been receiving some of these numbers last minute. There are two adjustments from the numbers that you received yesterday. One, you'll see a reduction in the sales tax for the landscape and irrigation, but you'll also see a reduction in the overall bid amount. and it ends up pretty much being a wash from the numbers that we supplied yesterday.
Good.
And get you to slide that up a little bit for total cost.
And I'll be glad to go ahead and provide each one of the board members a copy of this information that I can forward via email to you.
I'd like to see, I'd like.
I'm
to
sorry,
get
the town
whole-
manager's already ahead of me.
Okay. Could you also send us the whole slideshow? Your whole slideshow?
Yes, sir.
Huh. Am I ready?
Any other questions for David? Any questions for Amy?
Are we going to have discussion and guidance after we authorize the manager to execute the contracts?
Okay. Questions first.
Well, let me ask one, because I think I see most of this in the numbers here. Ms. Miller, you mentioned putting the lighting back in at 18K. Is that in these numbers, in this sheet anywhere?
It is not.
It's not in there.
And that exact price, I believe, is $17,171. I don't recall what the change amount was.
Okay, good enough.
Okay. There not any further questions. The first thing we need to talk about is whether we authorize the town manager to execute these contracts as have been presented tonight. Any discussion on that issue?
Could you go back to that page where you had the three numbers listed?
Back up
Yes.
one more, I think.
Back up one more.
Right.
There we go. Do you want to bid with everything in one, or do you want three, a motion, or do you want three separate motions?
We need to authorize all three separate contracts.
That's correct.
Right. So we would need to authorize each of these contracts.
This is not completely changed either.
And that would be for a not to exceed
Mr. Lade, I
amount.
believe that's the case, isn't it? John, is that the case? We need to authorize each of these three contracts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Ready for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town manager to proceed with the execution of the Hatchell Concrete base bid of the 752,713.16, which includes alternate 2 and 3.
Second to that motion. Any discussion on the motion to award Hatchell Concrete a contract in the amount of $752,713.16 to include base bid plus alternate 2 and 3? Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, and it's so ordered.
Ready for another one?
Ready for the next motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town manager to proceed with the execution of the Alpha Advantage contract in the amount of 162, not to exceed 162,635 for landscaping and irrigation.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all in favor of the town manager executing a contract with Alpha Advantage Incorporated not to exceed 162,635, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, and it's so ordered. Next motion.
Okay, I'd like to
You
make a
on a roll.
motion that we authorize the town manager to proceed with the execution of the contract for Carolina Parks and Play not to exceed $380,784.48, which is the playground package via the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? The motion is to, for the town manager to execute a contract with Carolina Parks and Play, $380,784.48 for the playground packets via the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. There being none, it's so ordered. Next item we have is how we're gonna pay for it.
Mayor,
Yes.
the sheet we were just handed by the town manager has got old numbers for landscaping and thus the totals. And down there for Alpha, could we take a 5 or 10 minute break and give them a chance to reproduce this with the right numbers on it so we can see it?
I think the numbers that were presented earlier today, if this has been updated since 9 o'clock this morning, then I can make you a new copy.
This isn't even what we saw on the screen a while ago.
That's what I'm
Right.
asking.
So,
Yes, it has been updated
Okay.
this afternoon, so what I gave Roberta is the most recent copy.
So we have the most recent, we can get it to.
so
I
the
just-
sales tax
So this
goes
is,
back to
this is the
10,000.
most recent copy?
No, this is from earlier. The
Early date,
the
okay.
landscaping came in with sales tax, so I can.
Okay,
I
so you
was-
have another
Yes, sir.
copy, Brew?
I can
Okay.
give that to you.
Then I'm gonna leave this one alone until we get the new copy.
Grabbed the wrong one, I apologize.
Okay. The, we have the Trillium grant, we have the Tourism Board grant, and we have our Parks and Path money. And I think, we've had the budget adjustment for 2015-16, $173,500. And the budget accounting accruals from this year getting us back on the track that we should be for $100,000. So, any discussion on how we will come up with the funds that we're being asked to come up with, which is one. I don't really have all of the things here.
I guess there's a couple different numbers. The one option which we had talked about as far as the deferring maintenance from those 4 items that Amy had talked about, I think that equivalent value was $95,000.
Yeah, $95,000, so that's staff's proposal.
That is one of staff's options that has been presented, yes.
And that gives us a little over 3% contingency. Mayor Pro Tem Walters, you have?
I just said that does not include the roughly 18,000 for lighting.
Right.
That won't cover that.
No, that is not included in that price.
That would have to come out of that 3% contingency, or we find 18,000 somewhere else. Okay?
Thank you.
Comment, Mayor,
Yeah.
as it relates to the deferred maintenance. We spent a long time going through the budget process, going through the CIP. There was a recommendation from staff to do the maintenance. The manager approved it in his budget. We approved it through our workshops. And so I would oppose deferring maintenance for roofs on buildings. If we didn't need the roofs, they shouldn't have ever been asked for. So I believe Ralph and the manager when they asked for them. We just had a tax increase that put money in the bank. We've got the money to do it if we want to do it. We spent $1 million out of fund balance to purchase the property to begin with. So taking money out of fund balance to complete the project, to move the project forward, I would not object to. But I do object to taking, robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and taking away maintenance on 3 other town facilities to do a new project.
Any other discussion? Yes.
May I ask a question? Would you propose taking the 95,000 plus the roughly 17 or 18,000 for lighting?
Yes.
All of that out of?
Yes, because I think
balance?
lighting is important as it relates to safety. If we're building a park, we want to make it safe for people to come. And lighting in a parking lot definitely, to me, is a safety feature in today's environment.
I'll agree with you.
I don't like lawsuits. And why would you bring people out to park in an unlighted parking lot?
I agree with you on the parking lot lighting. I think that's mandatory, really.
I just think it's wrong to take away maintenance money to do something new, and I just voted to do this new project. But I think we need to look elsewhere other than stealing from the maintenance fund. If we want to take it away from new projects, let's do that. But I have no compunction about taking it away from fund balance.
Mr. Ratzenberger?
Much like her. First off, first off, we all know this is probably the most important project we've ever had our hands on. For what it will do for the town, we can't do anything bigger and better than this thing. And staff has done a super job, not only with the design of what's there, it's wonderful, but they've also had to go back and basically rip their little baby apart piece by piece by piece to get it back underneath, and they've done a super job, and I know it's taken a lot of time and effort on their side to get it here. And so I don't have any problem with the motions we made to let the contract to move on and get this thing done. But like my partner over here, if she'll allow me to say that.
Absolutely, no problem.
I object to taking the maintenance money. We spent too much time and I don't mean too much by excessive amount, but we spent too much time on the budget this spring going through this stuff to arrive at these things are necessary, and now we're not necessary. I don't get it, and it'll only cost more later. So the lighting was a question I had when I first saw some of these numbers, and I would like to see that put back in. And, if we can't find other new toys to get rid of, things that haven't started that aren't relevant, then I'm willing to dive into the fund balance here, because this is that important to us, and we're just gonna have to cinch up our belts a lot tighter following on. But I'm afraid that all of these ifs and thens, we're running entirely too close to the edge on this thing, hoping that something will happen well, and we just put it behind it and get it done. But anyway, so I'm all for continuing on, but I'd like to take it out of fund balance, the 95 plus the 18, and away we go.
Commissioner DeVeres?
Yeah, I support going forward and funding everything that we approved in the motion for the town manager to go forward to these contracts. I also am not necessarily opposed, but I'm not in favor of using these maintenance fees, roof repairs and things like that. I'd rather not use those if possible. I don't know if the only other option is to go into the fund balance. Perhaps the town manager could come up with some other options for us. I want to make sure we don't violate our fund balance policy. If the only other option is taking it out of the fund balance, I'm okay with that. But perhaps there are some other options, I don't know.
Layperson Walters?
May I ask Amy one question
Yes.
before comment?
Please.
If we take 113,000 out of fund balance, is that going to violate our policy, or are we still good?
No, we'll be fine, because the other piece of that puzzle is we could have done a budget amendment in fiscal year 16 had we had the time to record that other $100,000 for that accrual, because we're going to be getting 4.5 quarterly payments in fiscal year 16, and again, we didn't budget for that extra half payment, which again will be another $100,000. And we'll be getting that again, which will bring the budget amendment to you in August for fiscal year.
Let me ask one question here.
Yes, sir.
Because I know what just went on here.
Well, just a minute, let her
Go ahead.
finish.
Are you, I'm sorry, are you finished there?
Well, I was waiting for her to finish
Right.
talking.
We're gonna take,
They're just, Mayor Pro Tem Walters is
Oh,
on the floor now.
Yes, so the answer is yes, I'm very comfortable, because again, in that, the statute changed the way the utilities franchise fee got taxed. It's now a sales tax. It's been the past 2 fiscal years. So right now, we're over $200,000 over budget and revenue for that one line item alone, and then tack on the other $100,000 that will accrue back. So right there is $300,000 over budget just in one revenue line item. So I'm comfortable with, appropriating $100,000 from fund balance based on some of the revenues the way the revenues are coming in. And when I did the budget, I did some projections as far as expenditures and revenues. So that was looking good as well. So I do think we'll have some contribution to fund balance this year.
okay, so
Mr.
now, I'm
Radford.
sorry, but now, that means that even though we're gonna do like 4.5 in 16.
Correct.
3.5 in 17.
4.5.
We're not ending up with a, pardon?
It'll be 4.5 and
4.5,
16
4.5.
because we're going to split one payment. So one payment's going to be split into 16 and one payment's going to be split into.
I thought there were 4 per year.
Four.
Quarterly, 4 per year.
We're taking account for an extra payment because of
An
the
extra
shift.
quarter.
So
Right.
there will be a
All right.
4.5 in this year and 4.5 next year.
And then
I
in
was
18, it'll get back on track.
I thought it was 4.5 and 3.5, and we were gonna end up with a half of 100,000, or 100,000 in the wrong, okay, we're, got it.
4.5.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That helps.
Thank you.
I would prefer not to defer maintenance also. I have, just for my school board days, just the word deferred maintenance just kind of makes me cringe. But, we've received such a gift of $1 million in grants to work on this park. And so many people have put in endless hours, staff, community, everything. So we have an obligation to do it and do it the best we can, I think. So if it's not going to violate our fund balance policy, we know that there will be additional funds going back into fund balance at the end of the year, hopefully based on those numbers. So I can support using $113,000 of fund balance to accomplish this, which includes the lighting, and I would be prepared to make a motion to that effect.
Well,
Unless someone else would. In other words, it's not until next month. Thank you.
I came in tonight opposed to using fund balance. We're going to hit fund balance real hard in next year's budget. It's just the way it's going to happen with the changes that we'll have in our shared revenues. But Amy just convinced me that possibly that's a better way to go than to defer the maintenance. So I can be happy.
Thank you.
Then we have a
I
motion.
got your back, Ralph.
We're not going to do that till August.
Right.
Is that right? Or do we? Well, we've,
You wanna make a motion?
or can
We
we?
need a-
Hey,
We don't need a motion tonight. I think all we need to do is give staff guidance because we have to wait for the
We
budget
give
adjustments.
staff guidance. Do we need to make a motion on?
If we can, hey, can they go ahead and approve this and then you just bring it back?
I mean,
What
we
can
can say with the
happen in a-
necessary budget amendments, and
Okay,
then,
we'll wait.
I mean,
it's only a week.
I think we might give staff guidance.
Got 2 weeks. Hopefully it comes
Right.
back unanimous.
Correct rating.
Did you prepare the budget amendment?
All right. Do you need any more, Amy, do you need any more formal guidance than that?
I think that what I'll bring to you in August is I will increase the utilities franchise revenue for fiscal year 17 by $101,250. increase Dowdy Park by the same, and then I will appropriate fund balance for 95,000 plus 18,000, and again, put that into Dowdy Park.
Okay.
Very
So
good. Thank
everybody-
you.
Thank
We
you.
have a consensus, everybody's in agreement with that. Okay. Let's start moving some dirt.
We'll get on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Dave, we really appreciate all your work. I know it's been a tremendous workload, and you've done an outstanding job on this. It's a tough project to bring together. It's not easy. It's all custom work, and I think you and Andy and staff have just done a fantastic job on bringing this project together for us, and I thank you for it.
Well, we thank you for your support and your patience. Thank you.
Thank you.
It really has been a good job you guys have done on that. The staff, guys and gals on staff on detailing this.
Next item is the consideration of budget judgment, adjustment number 1 to 16-17. Budget ordinance has to be considered at our August 3rd meeting, correct? All right, so we will do that then. Mr. Ogburn, you want to bring item 3 to us, which is a request for authorization to apply for an NC DOT grant for ADA curb ramps at beach accesses.
Yes, sir.
Maybe get some federal money coming.
And the beauty of this is the state will match the local share. So it's no funds coming from the town if approved. I received an email from Randy Midget, who's the district field engineer for Division 1 it was last Tuesday, July 12th. The division the DOT became aware of $7.5 million in federal transportation alternative program funding, that if it's not spent by the end of the federal fiscal year, it'll lapse. So the secretary has asked each one of the divisions to come up with a plan for using this money. What they're proposing, and half of the funds will go to localities with less than 5,000 residents. So what they're proposing, and that's most of Division 1, what they're proposing on the map, you'll see they're trying to get the multi-use paths ADA compliant. And they've gone and taken and this will show you what we think is every beach, every intersect along our beach road multi-use path. Basically what it is the ramps aren't ADA compliant, and they need to have those raised tactile surfaces so that wheelchairs or walkers will recognize when they're at an intersection. So that's what they're suggesting we do with these funds. They've given us a sample letter that we can write with your authorization that's due. This happened pretty quickly. It's due July 29th. So we're fortunate enough to have this meeting in between the time I've received notification and when the letters are due. One of the things that when Ralph and I were talking about this, and you'll see Little Bridge is there as well. That's the purple. One is not compliant, and one is not. I think the legend will tell you. I can't read that. I'm sorry, but.
The non-compliant is red.
Yeah, so we've got ramps, but they're not compliant. The other one, we don't have, the yellow Little Bridge, there's nothing there at all. But we'd also like to suggest that because the divisions, I guess their policy is that everything now has to have those tactile ramps and I think we paid DOT to put that in, and it must have not been a standard at that time, that we take an opportunity to also look at the 10.5 shops to see if we can, if we could possibly use these funds to improve ADA accessibility along that stretch as well. So we'd like to get the board to authorize us to request these funds, to request DOT to work with us to put a plan together. It'll include that map as well as the 10.5 shops.
Any questions for Mr. Ogburn?
Just one, because I had trouble visualizing this at first. I understand curves and all that. We've got some crosswalks that basically just run into plowed ground.
Yep.
And so that would end up like a little bitty path intersecting to the multi-use path is here, the road is here, the crosswalk stops, and there's grass.
I don't think it would address that. I think it's just gonna address where the path intersects with driveways and streets. If you look at this,
Okay,
that's
so it's
along,
along the multi-use path,
Correct.
not at the crosswalks.
Right.
I misunderstood. So when it said crosswalks, I was thinking of
Other way,
the stuff going this way across the road.
east and west, not
But
north and
we're
south.
actually talking length along, okay. That's why I was confused. or at
but
least
it's so open-ended and happens so quickly that I think we can ask for that. But what they're giving us, it appears to be just the length.
Okay, well, stick that in there, because there are places where if you go across a crosswalk,
Yeah, if you look at, this
they're not pretty sometimes.
may not be a good example, but I noticed it coming in that Jockey's Ridge crossing is just a shoulder that drops off. And I think that's an example of what you're talking about.
Do we have a motion to authorize Town Manager Ogburn to write this letter requesting to apply for this grant from NCDOT?
So
I'll make
moved.
that. Or I'll
Second.
defer to the mayor pro tem.
Motion made and
I'll
seconded.
second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, there being none. Other than a closed session that we have to go into tonight, the only thing remaining on the agenda as published would be an update on the shuttle bus concept. Is it agreeable that we move down to that at this time? Okay?
Okay. We had a good presentation in early July about the shuttle bus concept. It had been kicked around some before then. There had been some work done before that presentation. There was quite a bit of work done by staff and others since that presentation, and I'd like to ask the town manager to give a good update as to where we are on that.
Thank you. The staff has worked very closely with Mr. Strawbridge, particularly Kelly, who's done the majority of the heavy lifting on what Mr. Strawbridge is very enthusiastic, and he has done a lot of legwork and a lot of back work in trying to make this venture a reality with the shuttle service in the Outer Banks. But we received an email from him also on Tuesday, July 12th, that he's decided to postpone for this season. He's hit some obstacles. A big one is finding a place to actually sit the business and parking these vehicles in off hours. He came in after he was here in June. He met with Commissioner Cahoon's business committee and gave a presentation there, and I think that it was received favorably, but a lot of questions is how to make it work, and Mr. Strawbridge now has some contact with folks that have ventured into this in previous times, and he's learned some of the roadblocks and some of the issues. So he's asked that we continue to work with him in the off-season. He knows that he may have to come before you with maybe some text amendments or some site plans or some accessory use type things. And I'm sure that staff will continue to work with him and all that, as much as we possibly can to make this happen. But he, on his own, he was very thankful and appreciative of the efforts made by staff. But I think he's pulled the plug for this year, but he hadn't given up.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Ogburn? Not, is there anything else that we need to consider tonight before we go into
Yes.
closed session? Yes.
I'd like to chew up some time. National Night Out is the 2nd of August, 5 to 7, Ark Church. There's stuff on the town website. I won't go through it. They've arranged a lot of good stuff. Hopefully we'll have a Coast Guard helicopter, all sorts of things up there. Several veteran things. And number one, I've talked to you about the health of Sergeant Billy Brown, one of the members on the advisory council who was instrumental in support of the local veterans here. He passed on Tuesday, the 12th. And anyway, his service to the veterans and the community, the veteran community in Dare County, both him and his wife Marcia, was exemplary. Couple of things that come out of the Veterans Advisory Council. One, with the work of the Veterans Advisory Council and funding by the Interfaith Community Organization, we now have free transport to Hampton, to the VA up in Hampton Roads from here. It was not funded before, so that work was done. The Veterans Advisory Council now has a vacancy to be considered by the commissioners, and would really like to have female representative on board. They used to have a female on the Veterans Advisory Council, but don't right now. And so if there are any female veterans that are interested, I can look it up on the DARE website and put in an application. And lastly, I sent a note out, but at the Dare County meeting this Friday, the Veterans Advisory Council has presented, and the county commissioners have approved a change to the personnel policy for providing veterans preference. And that's on there. And I presented a little pile of paperwork, just some research on the backside. And I'd like to just simply ask the board if there's any interest in asking staff to look into this, and if there's any additional guidance for the town of Nags Head personnel policy. And that's it.
You want to make that as a motion that we have staff look into it? Is that as a?
If a motion's required, or if it's just consensus that staff look at. However, I'll make the motion, but
Consensus would be good enough. Okay. Do we have that consensus?
I agree. If I understand properly, we're just asking for investigation and come back and tell us how it might be able to be implemented, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, all right.
I've provided some background info. I've also provided some questions that I have. There's some very inconsistencies between federal, state, and county, and I would rather staff look into, decide what they want to do, if anything, in that regard.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other commissioners have anything to bring? Any other business that we need to bring tonight? If not, we will move into closed session now to protect attorney-client privilege in accordance with US 143-318-11. A3, do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We need a second.
Yes, you do. You need a second and a vote.
Yeah, I was thinking any additional language that we need.
The one thing I would like to give you a very brief update on the Richardson litigation as well, but that would be under the same provision.
Okay, so that motion is made, seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We will move into closed session at this time. Board's back in session. Mr. Lighty, would you report on the closed session, please?
Yes, sir. The board did confer with the town attorney regarding the pending Richardson litigation, as well as another matter within the attorney-client privilege, but no actions were taken.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.